200,000 people. President Chakwera said the government could not create jobs on its own and needed the private sector's help. He said every entrepreneur needed to employ more people. The president spoke during his 100 days scorecard event on Monday. The 1 million campaign promise was a major talking point for the Tonse Alliance that was elected in a repeat presidential poll. Critics have told local media that the alliance had no job creation plan and was just using it as a campaign strategy. Madagascar's President André Rajoelina has lifted a curfew imposed to curb the spread of coronavirus. The president announced that sporting activities would be allowed, but with an audience of not more than 200 people. Passengers boarding domestic flights will be required to take a coronavirus test 48 hours before departure and will only be allowed to board if the test is negative. Only one airport was cleared for international flights beginning this month, with strict guidelines in place in order to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Mask wearing and social distancing are still mandatory across the country. Madagascar recorded a spike in virus cases in July, forcing the government to reintroduce a lockdown in the capital, Antananarivo. President Rajoelina had promised a herbal tonic that he said cured COVID-19, but the World Health Organization has maintained that there is no cure for the disease. The tonic is now being manufactured in pills and continues to be distributed in the country. Ethiopia's President Sahle Work Zewde has promised that the upcoming election will be free and fair. Ethiopia will hold its election before September next year. The president said some reforms had been done on the Electoral Commission in order to ensure its independence. President Sahle told a joint parliamentary sitting that the government would ensure peace, stability and security. The current administration is serving an extended term after the election was postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic. The northern region of Tigray went on to hold its election against advice from the federal government. Mali's transitional president Bandao has appointed a 25-member government in which senior military personnel have been given several key posts. According to a presidential decree read out on state television, the Ministries of Defense, Security, Territorial Administration and National Reconciliation are ought to be led by colonels in the Malian military. Ndao had a career in the Air Force and was handpicked to be president of the country by the coup leader. Some significant posts also went to civilians, with the former prosecutor Mohammed Sida Diko heading the Justice Department. Only 4 posts were given to women and just 2 posts for members of the opposition, the M5, that headed protests which led to President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta being ousted by the military. You are tuned to the Daily Africa service of Vatican Radio.
And now, our feature, Justice and Peace. We examine freedom of peaceful assembly and what is legal and illegal about it. Freedom of peaceful assembly, sometimes referred to as freedom of association, is the right of people to come together to express, promote, pursue, and defend their collective or shared ideas or interests on political, social, economic, cultural, and other issues. Some states recognize the freedom of peaceful assembly and the freedom of association as 2 rights, while others treat them as 1 right. The United Nations recognizes them as 2 rights. Each member states are expected to provide for their enjoyment in their constitutions and to protect and defend them in public life. For that reason, the Human Rights Council appoints every 3 years a special rapporteur for the rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and association to gather and share information about global, regional, local trends and issues relating to these rights, to make recommendations on how to ensure the promotion and the protection of these rights, and to report on violations as well as discrimination, threats or use of violence, harassment, persecution, intimidation, or reprisals directed at persons exercising these rights. Peaceful protests or demonstrations are protected under the freedom of peaceful assembly. Unfortunately, time and again, genuine protests have turned violent, either because they have been infiltrated by violent elements, or because, for political reasons, state security agencies, especially the police, have been ordered by government to prevent the participants from assembling and to use force to disrupt the gatherings. In August this year, the United Nations Human Rights Committee gathered views from member states about those rights, especially when they are legal and illegal. He is a South African national and a member of the UN Human Rights Committee. He explains more.
The Human Rights Committee adopted an interpretation of the right of peaceful assembly and explain to states and populations around the world what do we mean when we say